Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're making an easy, cheesy, creamy chicken and rice casserole. Now I'm going to go over kind of what you gotta have, and then we're going to talk about some substitutes and exactly what I have while we start cooking. You need 1.5 cups of long grain rice, about 1.5 cups of shredded cheese, a couple cups of cooked chicken, and a couple cups of vegetables, about 1.75 cups of milk, a couple of cups of either chicken broth or water and bouillon, and something to season it with. You want to get your pan hot. And we're gonna saute our onion and throw our chicken in there with it to add flavor to this, because our chicken is already cooked, so there's not gonna be a ton of flavor in it unless we do a little sauteing first. Now, if you don't have an onion, you can use onion powder or dried minced onion in this. And you want to wait till your pan is hot, and then you're going to add just a couple tablespoons of butter. You don't need to go crazy, but that butter is going to put a whole lot of flavor in this too. Now I've got a purple onion here. You certainly don't have to have a purple onion. I got a purple onion on sale. This is a casserole, and with pretty much all casseroles, you can use what you got. That's what's so great about them. And like I said, the onion powder and the dried minced onion will work just fine in this. Now, I'm going to add my chicken into this and let it saute in with my onions, because the flavor of the butter and the onions will get in my chicken that's already been cooked. Now, this is some pre-cooked roasted chicken that I bought at the store. You can use part of a whole roasted chicken out of the deli. I know a lot of times those are cheaper than buying raw chicken and then cooking it, and they're great for using in recipes. I happen to again get this on sale. So just dump that in there with your onion. Whatever kind of chicken you use, you do want to kind of shred it up or cut it up in pieces. You can also use this canned chicken. I know lots of folks are getting this now. Maybe you're getting it at church or at food pantries or something, because a lot of us are needing help. But a lot of you might have this in your pantry because you've bought it for emergencies or snowstorms or whatever. If you have some canned chicken in your pantry and you need to use it up, casseroles are a great way to do it. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some salt and pepper into this, just plain old black pepper. Now you could put any seasoning in this you wanted to. You could certainly do garlic. You could do stuff like thyme and parsley and sage. And I'm not doing too much salt because my bouillon has salt in it. If you were using chicken broth, it would have salt in it. And my chicken already has salt in it. But I want a little bit for my onions. So just a pinch of salt. Keep in mind how much salt you have in other stuff that you're already putting in it. And you can adjust it later on too. You could put just some poultry seasoning here or something if you had some of that. Any kind of spice blend you like. You can spice it up and make it hot if you want to. Keep an eye on your onions and stuff. You don't want to burn them. You just want them browned a little bit and kind of cook them till they start to get tender. Now, if you have already cooked rice, like you made a great big pot of long grain rice and you wanted to use it in recipes, you can use your already cooked rice in this. You're going to cut your milk back to 1 cup and dissolve your bouillon, whether you're using some of this liquid stuff or cubes or powder, dissolve that in here. Go ahead and add it in here after your onions get browned. And then just add your 1 cup of milk and use your already cooked rice. If you have minute rice or instant rice and you want to use that, you need to double it. You need 1.5 cups of the instant, or I'm sorry, 3 cups of the instant rice, because you have 1.5 cups of long grain rice. So just double the amount if you want to use the instant rice. Use 3 cups. If you've got already cooked rice, this would be a super fast dinner for a weeknight. Like if you made a big pot of rice on the weekend and you were using it through the week to make meals, super, super fast. So, you know, use what you got again. And you can make substitutions, and anytime a recipe calls for long grain rice, you can use minute rice by doubling the amount. But it's also going to change your cooking time. Keep that in mind too. Okay, for my vegetables, I'm using a bag of frozen peas and carrots. You can use any canned, frozen, or fresh vegetable in this. It would be really good with broccoli and cauliflower, or maybe a bag of California mix thrown in here with the broccoli and cauliflower and carrots. Or you could use just broccoli or just cauliflower. You could use peas and corn or carrots and corn, you know, if the kids didn't like one or the other. And like I said, cans will work fine in here. Just use what you got. It is a casserole. And we're going to cook this completely on the stovetop. Now you can put it in the oven if you want to. I would cook it mostly on the stovetop though, and then just maybe put it in the oven at the end to brown the top. But that's up to you, and you can even cook the rice entirely in the oven, but it takes a long time to cook rice in the oven. You're talking a couple hours of cooking time if you put it in the oven versus maybe 30 minutes on the stovetop. Okay, once our onions start to get tender, we're going to go ahead and add our rice in here. And we're going to fry it just a little bit before we add the liquid. And what that's going to do is give it a little more flavor. And you don't necessarily have to do this. You can go ahead and dump in your chicken broth or your bouillon in your water or whatever you're using and bring it to a boil and then add your rice in. We're going to have to do a little more stirring doing it this way. We're going to have to stir our rice here while we do this. And then we're going to have to stir it until our liquid comes to a boil. So if you don't have time to stand here and stir it for a couple of minutes, just go ahead and add your liquid in before your rice, and then add your rice into the boiling liquid. Okay, once you've kind of toasted your rice a little bit, and it don't take long, and like I said, you don't have to do it, go ahead and add in your water or your chicken broth. If you're using water, add in your bouillon now. And because I had 2 cups, I want about 2 teaspoons of bouillon or 2 bouillon cubes, whichever one you're using. And that kind of gives you the same thing as chicken broth, kinda. And of course, if you've got fresh chicken broth, maybe you boiled a whole bunch of bone-in chicken over the weekend when you cooked your rice, that's the best in this. And we're gonna stir it to make sure that that bouillon gets around and to make sure our rice does not stick to the bottom. You don't really need to add any salt for your rice if you're using chicken broth or if you're using the bouillon, because that has salt in it already. You might want to taste it when it's all done cooking and add a little bit more then, but that'll probably do it. You won't need to add much more. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and add in my milk too, because 2 cups of water is not going to cook a 1 3/4 of long grain rice. And like I said, I've got about 1 3/4 of milk and the 2 cups of water there. And just kind of keep stirring this ever so often as it comes back to a boil. Now when it comes back to a boil, we're going to turn it way down on low and put a lid on it and let it cook for about 15 minutes. And then we're going to add in some of our cheese and our vegetables. If you're a casserole maker, you might be wondering why I didn't put anything in here to thicken all this liquid up. Well, the starch in the rice is going to thicken it all up. So we don't need to add any thickening agent. We don't need to add any flour or any cornstarch or anything like that. The rice starch is going to thicken it all up and it will be nice and creamy, and it won't be at all runny. The rice is going to absorb most of the moisture, and you may even want to adjust the moisture content in your casserole when it gets done by adding a little more milk to it. Okay, our casserole is starting to boil now. You don't have to like bring it to a big rolling boil or anything. Just start to simmer it, turn it down, and put your lid on it and let it sit there for about 15 minutes. And it's kind of necessary to do that to get your rice done. If you don't put the lid on it, your rice is never going to get done, and your liquid will all cook out. I want to share John 5:24 and 25 with you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath everlasting life, and should not come unto condemnation, but pass from death unto life. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. Now, those were Jesus' words, and he was speaking to his accusers. And he was not speaking about those who are in the grave. He was speaking about those who live in sin, who live in darkness, who live separated from God. When we are saved, we are born again. We pass from the empty, dark, dead life that we are living unto a full life with God. He makes us a new creation. And there is a great revival going on now. And I think it is the revival that believers have been praying for many, many years, even many, many generations. Now is the time for those who are living in darkness to hear the words of the Son of God and pass from death unto life. We're told that God sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Now is the time to listen to the words of Jesus. Now is the time to be healed and made whole and live the abundant life that God created you to live. If you are one of those people who doesn't understand what I'm talking about, but you are living in darkness and brokenness, and you have no hope or no joy or no peace in your life, now is the time. Jesus is waiting for you, and he will forgive you. He will make you whole. He will heal you. All of your hurt, all of your pain, Jesus will take that all. He has already taken it all. He's just waiting on you to receive it. Seek him. If you don't know where to start, the book of John in the Bible is a very good place. I'll post some links to some materials in the description of this video. You can leave a comment and ask. And if I happen to not see your comment, you are in a place where there are a lot of believers. Someone else will. Look for some of these revivals. They are at churches, they are at colleges, they are at community centers. They are all around, and they are growing by the day. Go into a church and ask. And if you don't get what you're looking for in the first church, go to the next one, because God is moving across our land. All around the world he's moving, and these revivals are starting. And he is waiting for you. So please, please, now is the time. Hear the words of the Son of God. Believe on him. Receive the gift of life that he has for you. Okay, we've been cooking about 15 minutes here with the lid on it, and I just noticed I had boiled over a little bit there. So keep an eye on it. You don't want it to boil over if you can help it. And I'm going to stir this just a little bit to make sure it's not sticking, and it is not. Now, rice takes about 20 minutes to cook. So my rice is not quite done yet. And you can see there, it's pretty thick already, and most of my liquid is absorbed, but not quite all of it, and that's what you want. You don't want it to get too dry, especially at this point, because like I said, your rice is not completely cooked yet. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add my vegetables in here. And I'm not even going to mix them in just yet, but I want them to cook a little bit because they were frozen. They're not canned. If you have canned vegetables, you can wait a little longer to add them. Now I'm just going to let that cook for a couple of minutes like that. And then I'm going to stir the vegetables in, and I'm going to stir in about half of my cheese. If your family doesn't like vegetables at all, I mean, if you can't come up with anything at all that you can put in here that you can get the kids to eat, you don't have to put vegetables in this. You can fix a salad for the folks that want some vegetables, and maybe have some fruit, some canned or fresh fruit with it to kind of balance the meal out a little bit. And it's good served, of course, with any kind of roll, like any casserole is, or bread, whatever you got. Most folks, though, do like a little roll or some bread, buttered bread or something with their casserole. Just a slice of buttered bread's good with it. All right, now after you've given your vegetables 2 or 3 minutes there with the lid on to kind of start cooking them, we're going to throw about half of our cheese in here and stir up the vegetables and the cheese. Okay, now we're starting to stick. We're soaking up all of our liquid, so you got to be really careful at this point. And part of that is this stove that I'm cooking on, because it doesn't turn down real low. If you're cooking this on your electric stove, you're going to turn it all the way down to just simmer. This one does not turn down to just simmer. Now, once you've got it all stirred up good, got your cheese and your vegetables pretty evenly distributed, made sure you don't have anything sticking on the bottom, go ahead and turn the heat off. Now we're going to put the lid back on this for just a minute, and that will melt the cheese that we're going to add to the top. If you wanted to put this in the oven and brown the top of it, now would be the time to do that, but you don't have to. Go ahead and sprinkle the rest of your cheese on. And your rice is going to keep cooking. Now we've had it cooking, well, the time that we stirred it there, or we sauteed it a little bit, browned it or toasted it or whatever you want to call it. And then where we were bringing it to a boil, it's been cooking well over 20 minutes. Because we had it in there 15 minutes, and we had the vegetables for a couple minutes, and then the time that it took it to come to a boil. So it's going to continue to cook for about 5 minutes. Just let it sit there for 5 minutes in the pot. It will keep soaking up liquid. Any extra liquid that's in there, it will get soaked up. Your cheese will melt, and your rice will be tender. So now you can yell at them all to get ready for dinner, go wash their hands and clear the table off and all that stuff. And while they're doing that, this will be melting, and you can get out the rest of whatever you're having for dinner and pour drinks. Y'all quit messing around and hurry up and get in here and sit down before this gets cold. All right, our casserole is ready now, and that's all there is to it. You just let it sit there long enough for the cheese to melt and the onions to get in and sit down so they can have some dinner before you put them in the bed. But you can see it's all very solid, not much liquid in it, and it's ready to serve right now. Just scoop it out on the plate and enjoy it. It may be just a piece of buttered bread with it, or some fruit or something would go with it, even if you put vegetables in it. I want to thank y'all so much for joining us again in the Hillbilly Kitchen. If you have not already, please don't forget to click like and subscribe before you leave. Share our videos with all your friends, and until next time, remember to put God first.